Hail and welcome back to Shovel Knight, Shovel of Hope, and welcome to the Tower of Fate, the final challenge that we're going to be going through in the Shovel of Hope campaign. And it may be the last set of levels, because this is like the Mega Man formula, where you go through a series of different levels before you get to the final boss. But it's not the hardest. If you got through Propeller Knight stage just fine, then you won't have any trouble at all here. This is a lot easier than all the wind traps that we had to go through to get to Propeller Knight. There's a few sections that will catch you off guard if you're not paying attention. There are a few sections that you need to maybe memorize bits of the level just so you can tackle them more efficiently. I didn't do this first take. It didn't take me as long to get down as Propeller Knight stage did, but I did have to reset a few times. But on the whole, this is nowhere near as difficult to get through as Propeller Knight stages. So, just do your best and you'll probably be fine here. It does do the Mega Man kind of thing where the final stages bring back both enemies and different platforming gimmicks from all the levels that you've been through up to this point. So yeah, this is very much a case of wrapping up this game's little Mega Man fetish with a nice little bow at the end, because I've been comparing basically everything in this game to Mega Man, but that's for a reason. It's obvious that that's their most distinct inspiration when it comes to this game. There's a lot of nods to all different kinds of classic games, but Mega Man is the most obvious one. Because we've had the 8 bosses, which are your stand-ins for the Robot Masters. We've got this little section at the end, which is your Wily Castle XP, and it's pretty much got the same gameplay idea as well. Level design seems quite influenced by Mega Man, although it's a lot easier on the whole. These guys making this game, Yacht Club Games, they obviously love Mega Man, and it really shows. And as someone who also really loves Mega Man, I couldn't be happier with that. I know it's very easy to be cynical about retro throwback games when there's been so many of them at this point, but Shovel Knight just does it so well. This isn't just a kind of cynical cash-in on nostalgia and that like you get with certain games. This is very much a case of the developers clearly like a lot of things about classic games, and they wanted to capture that same spirit in their own game. And I kind of think, I can respect that. This is the perfect kind of game for someone like me as well, who has that massive love of retro platformers. If you look on my channel, FlameHisWorld, about 90% of what I cover is, 2D side scrollers. So you can tell that this is right up my alley here. And honestly, I feel a little bit bad about how long it took me to get to this game, because, from playing through this for the first time for this LP, I fucking love this. This game has kind of reminded me what it is I love about video games. There's just that perfect feeling of control. You got a great character that you're playing as. Shovel Knight is such an interesting character. He's very basic, but he's a knight with a shovel. He does what he needs to do for his role in the story. And it's just a really endearing character to play as. You've got levels which are just so much fun to traverse through. They're challenging when they need to be, and they're forgiving when they need to be too. And, this is such a fun fucking video game. It's... I don't want to be one of these kind of throwaway, look guys, the indie game is better than the AAA game, because that's not true. There's a lot of AAA games that have their audience and do what their audience want to, but for someone who loves this kind of gameplay as much as I do, this is one of the best examples of that that's come out in recent years. There's a few other classic throwback games that I also enjoy, to be fair. A game that I have recently replayed through for my FC Playthroughs channel is Spark the Electric Jester. And at the time of recording this playthrough part, it's actually today that the sequel game came out, Spark the Electric Jester 2, which follows the story of the other character that you got introduced to in the first game, Fark. And it's a kind of, I guess, spiritual successor to Sonic Adventure in a way, because whereas the first game was very clearly inspired by classic Sonic, this is going for more the more modern 3D Sonic kind of look and feel and whatnot. And it's okay, like I've played through about the first hour or so, it's kind of fun. I will say that it doesn't blow me away as much as the first game did, but then it is a case of, it's a game obviously made on not that high of a budget, and it's much harder to make 3D games look appealing than it is 2D games. So the developer, Lake Vapard, is kind of at a bit of a disadvantage there, but he does still feel like he's doing the best he can with what he's got. And, you know, the music's great as you would expect, going by the first game, and the precedent that set. And the gameplay, well, there's a few little things that I feel could do a bit of tweaking. It captures the spirit of what I'd like quite well from like a little Sonic Adventure throwback kind of game. But here is the first boss of the Tower of Fate. Ladies and gentlemen, we are meeting Black Knight once again. What's this, a little bit of trouble in paradise between the Enchantress and the Black Knight? Maybe? Well, like, not really, given we already know that they're not officially in cahoots. Black Knight is just sort of fighting for his own reasons, while the Enchantress is like leading the Aldrino Quarter and all that. But nah, this is where we get the final confrontation between Shovel Knight and Black Knight. He can do a lot more things here than he could do the last times we've met him. So, you know, he's not the pushover that he once was. He's got these new like Enchantress powers, like with the purpley glow, and he can fucking fly. Now, what this reminds me of, and I'm not sure if this is what they're explicitly going for or not, but this very much makes me think of the Mega Man versus Bass fight from Mega Man 7. Because if you remember from that game, when you would have the rematch against Bass toward the end, Bass would pull out his treble powers. You know, bass and treble. Treble was like Bass's equivalent to Mega Man's Rush. And given you would have your Rush powers there at that point as well with the armor and whatnot, you would both be flying around and it would be like this cool kind of airborne battle, although that did kind of shoot itself in the foot in that boss by having platforms everywhere, so you can't really fly as freely as Black Knight is here. And yeah, that was me accidentally opening the pause menu when I was trying to heal, because I think this is actually the first time on screen that I've had to heal, because most of the time the healing I've been doing in my practice runs, and then I've got the bosses down quite a bit better for the recorded run, but like, this is where it kind of gets a little bit more challenging, so I did have to settle for using me little Truffle King Chalice thing. So, there we get Black Knight's role in this story of he's kind of going after Shield Knight too, and so it makes you think that maybe there's a little bit of competition going on here, if you catch my drift. So, one thing I will say I quite like about this particular little rush of levels at the end here compared to the typical Mega Man ones is that you do get to stop and have a breather between each of the levels. And what that more importantly means is you get a full health refill and a full magic refill. So it's not like the whole, you know, wily boss progression where you're constantly basically grinding for refills toward the later stages. No, they know you're going to be making quite liberal use of the different powers here, so they kind of give it to you off the bat, which I very much appreciate, because yeah, it is technically making it easier, but given you would only be grinding anyway, it's not really dumbing it down, it's just sort of a convenience feature, so, you know, it just makes the game less tedious, which, especially when you're toward the end of a game like this, you know, that's something I appreciate. I'm here to be legitimately challenged, I'm not here to just keep on fighting the same enemies over and over until I get more, like, weapon power or whatever. And yeah, this is one thing that this game does do quite well towards the end, as well as showing off all the different like enemy challenges and platforming challenges and whatnot. It does give you an opportunity to use a lot of the powers that you've picked up over the course of the game. The one that I'm not going to be getting any use from is the money one. The amulet something. I can't even remember what it's called because I get so little use out of it. But basically what you're meant to do with that, given I've barely shown it off at all in this game, is you throw it at an enemy and it gives you more jewels. It makes them drop more jewels. So you can, like, you know, grind for money with it if you need to, which you don't need to in this game. This game is quite generous with its economy. As long as you just keep on playing through the game and remember to pick up the items that the enemies drop, you won't need to grind to get all the different weapons and that you can unlock, or like any of the food tickets or anything. This game gives you everything you need. So, you know, like, just keep on playing naturally and eventually you'll have as much money as you need. Worst case scenario, you might have to do some of the little spin-off side levels, but, you know, they're all only short, so it's no biggie. And one thing that I haven't talked about yet, even though I specifically made a note of it in the document that I've got open with all my notes here, is throughout these levels you've seen a few different samurai enemies. Like, we had one that just dropped onto the little cart thing that we were on just now. Those samurai enemies are called Liquid Samurais, and they were the final character to be designed by one of the directors for a day. They were designed by somebody called Max Van Doyen, and he was the only one to design a specific enemy type, because all the others, they designed bosses. They designed like Riser, you got Baz in there, you got the Phantom Striker, you got Mr. Hat, but nah, this person, I think is the guy, but Max, you know, gender neutral name and I don't know the person, so I apologise if I'm getting that wrong. But they took it upon themselves to design a special enemy for the final stages of the game. Look, here's one of them here with the arrow. They're actually kind of cool enemies, and there's different types of them as well, because there's the ones with the arrows, there's the ones that just sort of drop down in front of you. They're actually legitimately cool, and I do like the fact that they've got this specific enemy type that's new for the final stages. Because, like, it's cool enough having the throwbacks to the previous levels and whatnot, but it's also nice to have this one new element that kind of sets everything apart, and I don't recall any of the Mega Man games specifically doing that. I could be wrong on that, because I tend not to pay too much attention to the Wily stages. They tend to be the least interesting stages in Mega Man, in my eyes. But, you know, it's kind of a neat feature to have. But to further extend this game's Mega Man fetish, if there's one feature that you know is coming in any Mega Man game when you're towards the end of the game, it is a boss rematch with all the Robot Masters. And so, to pay homage to that, we now have a boss rush with all the members of the Aldrino Quarter, and the bosses here are mostly the same. There's a couple that change around, but for the most part it's just do the same thing again, and the challenge here is attrition, but you get a hill between every couple of bosses, so you're not really going to have any trouble here, as shit as my takes may lead you to believe. But what I'm going to do here is, given we've already fought with these guys and we've explained strategies and whatnot, I will go through the official bios for each of the characters. So, Treasure Knight. Towering over most of the Aldrino Quarter, Treasure Knight is a tidal terror, A loner by nature, he rules the ocean as a captain of the Iron Whale, a prototype underwater vessel. With his retractable anchor cannon and impenetrable diving suit, he is at home on the seafloor where he spends his day hunting down ancient relics. Just keep your hands off his hard-earned leisure, or you'll find yourself floating home. And his pros can handle extreme physical mental pressure, and cons are greedy and you can't understand him when he's wearing his helmet. Now, Polar Knight. Titanic and terrible, Polar Knight guards the stranded ship in the frozen south. A silent giant wielding a two-handed snow shovel, he's the largest and most brutish of the Eldrino Quarter. Sometime in the past, Shovel Knight and Polar Knight have crossed shovels before. Pros would snow shovel and doesn't feel cold but is quite considerate. Cons, he has an annoying laugh. Now, Propeller Knight. This aerodynamic ace commands the Enchantress's flying machine with the cocksure attitude of a sky pirate. With his heli helmet, he can zoom short distances with ease. Shovel Knight encounters Propeller Knight on top of the aircraft as it zooms through the sky. Earth fights against air in a true battle of elements. His pros are, he's a talented fencer, he has a mechanical heli helmet, and his cons, he's arrogant, he's a lightweight, and he has an outrageous accent. Man, am I glad they're not doing like a Mega Man powered up version of this where they give him voice acting, because I could imagine that getting quite irritating. But now I've caught up and we've got what is arguably quite a weak run of Spectre Knight here, because I fucked up big time. Spectre Knight. In life, Spectre Knight was a cruel and cunning warrior, and although his blood is now icy cold, he is no less formidable as a phantasm. The most begrudgingly loyal knight of the Order, Spectre Knight follows the Enchantress only because she is capable of magically extending his undeath. Clutching a grim scythe in his shriveled claws, Spectre Knight commands his weapon with uncommon cunning, and his next target is Shovel Knight. His pros, he has a tattered crimson cloak, a supernatural scythe, and he has immortality. And his cons, he is overly sentimental, and he tries too hard to act cool. Which, like, dude, you have a massive fucking scythe, you do not need to overcompensate in coolness. Like, you are fucking cool enough already. But like, the thing about, you know, his past and that does get explored a little bit in his own campaign, Spectre Torment. So we will see more of that when we get to his own campaign. Probably next year sometime, because I want to do Plague Knight's campaign first. But, you know, this boss is taking me way too long, and given it's one of the easier bosses in the game, that's kind of embarrassing, but, you know, this is the end of a long level, so I didn't really want to restart the level at this point. King Knight. King Knight isn't a king, he is a king-themed knight, but that doesn't stop him from making decrees. As the Lord Defender of Primal Keep, he commands a formidable army of minions, experienced with repelling invaders who dare try to topple his malevolent monarchy. King Knight is a master of single combat, and because he's dressed to nines almost all the time, he's always ready for a brutal coronation. His pros, commanding presence, charismatic, and he's a snappy dresser. His cons is he is not actually a king. Now, Plague Knight. Sometimes the bomb is mightier than the sword. Deep in the recesses of his alchemical lab, Plague Knight perfects concoctions both poisonous and explosive. Toxin, disease and death are his playgrounds. Even his comrades give Plague Knight a wide berth because he needs more than just the common cold. With an array of mysterious and magical bottles at his side, Plague Knight could be considered the black sheep of the Eldrino Quarter. His pros, he has a maniacal scientific mind and fearlessness bordering on recklessness. And his cons, he is physically weak, he has a short stature, and he's shy at parties. And does that fit his character if I've ever heard anything? Like, he's the nerd guy who is shy at parties. Good on you, Plague Knight, I can relate. Mole Knight. The shovel may roll the confines of man-made gardens, but in the wild, the titan of tunnelling is the mole. Mole Knight embraces this truth wholeheartedly. With his modified drop-forged armour claws, he mockingly tears through the earth with brute strength. Mole Knight calls the subterranean lost city his home, an ancient, abandoned metropolis. Shovel Knight must pass through the Lost City, but chances are slim he won't be challenged to see who is truly the master of digging. His pros: he has great eyesight, he's shrewd, and has high endurance. Cons: obsessive personality, and he gets sweaty in armour. Lovely. Now, Tinker Knight, for his first phase here, you want to use this weapon that you got from his stage, because it takes out his first phase in one hit, like in the rematch with Metal Man. But, Tinker Knight. Some knights love rushing into the glory of battle, ready to crush the skulls of their enemies. Tinker Knight is not one of those knights. He does his fighting before the battle begins, labouring on diabolical devices that do his work for him. The wrench is a tool of his trade. That's called a spanner, by the way. Doubling as an engineering device and a melee weapon. Some are quick to dismiss Tinker Knight's lethality, usually just before falling victim to one of his mechanical monstrosities. And his pros: he has a gregarious demeanour and he's a hard worker. His cons: he's rough hands, he works long hours, and he's always out to prove himself. Is working long hours really a con? Like, it just shows that he's dedicated. I suppose as long as he's not overworking himself to the point where it degrades his work. And as long as he's working hard on his own terms rather than because he's being forced to. I don't really see that as a negative. Granted, I'm the kind of person who, as much of a joke as what I do for a living is, I do like to spend as much of my time working as possible. So maybe that's my particular bias here. Like, I hate having days off. If I have a day off where I haven't worked on any videos or I haven't recorded anything or haven't done any editing, I feel like absolute shit. I think I could probably count the amount of days off I've had on one hand this year, you know. But that's just me. Maybe the Order of No Quarter work differently and they look down on the crunch culture, which he might be imposing on himself. I don't know. But one thing that's cool is that during this section where you can lift them all back up, you can actually just walk away and leave them hanging if you want to, which is a little bit morbid, but at the same time they did kind of just attack us. They did try to fucking kill us, so I guess an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth if you're the biblical type. I don't know. But one thing that I will note is that if you're wearing the gold armour, you know, the optional useless gold armour, when you beat this level and you talk to King Knight, he does actually have an extra line of dialogue just showing appreciation for your style, which, you know, it's a neat little touch. A lot of people won't see it because why would you be using the gold armour for any reason other than to show off? Although, saying that, I am about to go to the armour outpost and you can probably figure out what I'm going to get. Because unlike a practical gamer, I do like to show off. Because I've been wearing this silver armour for most of the game, ever since I unlocked it, and the silver armour, I will say flat out, is the best armour, at least for my playstyle. Because that ability where you fall down twice, well, you use 2 drop dashes, and then you get your big swing. That is a really useful power, and it can help you just take out an enemy that should take like 2 or 3 hits a lot quicker. But you know, if you like your flashy armour, then the gold armour is your pick. It does nothing new other than having a bit of a sparkle when you jump. And I can't remember if I brought this up yet in the playthrough yet or not, but there is one practical use for that. And that is in the Lich Yard. You know, Spectre Knight's level, where during these sections where it goes dark, if you've got the flash as you're jumping around, that can help you work out where you are. But that is literally the only use I can find for this particular armour type here. And I am just using it to kind of end the playthrough in style. But yeah, again, banking on this game's little Mega Man nods. That is a very Mega Man kind of boss. There is a boss like that where the walls start attacking you in Mega Man 2, and there's also a throwback to that of sorts in the Wily stages of Mega Man 10. And man, I haven't played Mega Man 10 in years. I probably should go back to that at some point. I think what I might do, and this is a might thing, but given we kind of covered Mega Man's 1 to 7 on FlameHisWorld that I did with Stephen, Chris and Joey like a long time ago now. The last one we did was 2016. I'm sort of getting back in the vibe to maybe go back to classic Mega Man, so I may come back to Mega Man 8, 9 and 10 sometime, maybe this year or next, we'll see. But here is the Enchantress herself. So, if it hasn't pieced itself together by now, what is going on is the spirit of Shovel Knight's one and only Shield Knight is within the Enchantress. And that's why he wants to win here, he wants to get her back. And this boss is pretty difficult, at least if you don't know what her pattern is going to be. So, your biggest problem here, what's most likely to kill you, is falling into a pit. She's not going to do enough damage just by chipping away at you, unless you like really fuck up. But when she's underneath the platform and she starts firing up, you know, it is very easy to get caught from below. And I get a few close shaves throughout this run. And don't worry, this fire attack she has here, one of the side effects of that is it does restore some of the platform, so it's not like a case of there's a time limit and if you leave it too long you're gonna die. Like, you do have that bit of security. So if you are struggling, I would actually advise to play it safe. She will chip away at the platforms, but it will at least give you a chance to look at which platforms have been chipped away at, and then you can plan your moves accordingly. Whereas if you do get a bit reckless, like I did on my first couple of takes of this thing, you'll probably end up in a pit. And of course, use the Chaos Sphere here sparingly, because you don't want to waste it, but it is quite useful when she's using that attack where she's firing directly in front of you. And man, that is one of the biggest examples of me needing to eat my words in a playthrough, I think, ever. Really, other than maybe trashing Pokemon Let's Go in Pokemon Y, and then ending up really enjoying the game. But that power has helped me against so many fucking bosses now, way more than like the fire attack, way more than like any of the others, except maybe the Phase Locket and the Anchor when I was fighting Tinker Knight. You know, like the Chaos Sphere is probably the best weapon in the game. I'm just saying that now. Tied with the Phase Locket, because the Phase Locket is useful in the levels, but when it comes to offensive weapons, the Chaos Sphere is fucking great. Can we catch Shovel Knight's beloved? Yes, we can. I don't actually know what happens if you drop her there. Like, it would be fucking hilarious if it was just like a game over there, or you get knocked back and you die. I don't think they'd do that. But, you know, I didn't really want to test it, because obviously after that first boss is so difficult, I didn't really want to have to redo the level. Like, granted, that is in terms of my recording process, because one thing that is honestly quite great here, in terms of being friendly to the player, is if you die in the second phase, which is coming up, then you will start back at the second phase. You won't have to beat the first phase again. So, one more boss left. This final boss here, we're going to show him the real superpower of teamwork, because fuck yeah, Shield Knight is back, and we're gonna work together, and that sounds like a really fucking cool ending to the game. Except for the fact that Shield Knight's AI is fucking stupid. Like, It could be a lot worse. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but there are a few opportunities where you could get a hit in, except for whatever reason she isn't jumping or she's on the other side of the room and you have to wait a bit. And there's also a few times where you might see her jump up like that, but you have no way of getting over to her in time. So I feel like she is a bit of a detraction to this boss. In a little way, like I wouldn't have been able to get over to there, get myself bouncing up, and then get a hit on the top of the boss in time for the boss before the boss kind of warps over to the other side of the room. I just wouldn't have been able to. But like with the first phase against the Enchantress, your biggest threat here is again the bottomless pits. So again, I would say take it slow, take it careful. The platforms that are getting broke away will restore themselves just like with the first phase. So if you see her doing that little vibration attack, just like get the fuck away from her. Because, you know, better safe than sorry with that kind of thing. And also keep the phase locket ready to go because it will save your life a lot more than Shield Knight will. Because what the game wants you to do is the game wants you to stand behind Shield Knight when she uses that attack where she fires all the projectiles at. But that requires you to get in a certain position, whereas by using the phase locket you have a lot more convenient movement. And god, that was so close to a death there. So there, yeah, again there's Shield Knight not being at her most useful. Come on, this is a fucking tease at this point. 3 more hits and then I'll kill her, but nah, I am playing it safe here because I do not want to fuck up. I think this may be like my 4th or 5th take of this final stage, so for the sake of my recording and not wanting to get a death in a level, I did have to refight the first phase too. But again, you don't have to do that. I don't think you realise quite how infuriating it is when that happens, when you see Shield Knight jump up and it's just that little bit poorly timed. And I've been sitting on 3 hits left for far too fucking long now. Oh, come on, 2 more, 2 more! There we go, ladies and gentlemen, we have beaten Shovel Knight, Shovel of Hope. What a fucking fantastic game. Like, seriously, I've sung its praises so much throughout this playthrough, but this campaign has been incredible. I haven't played the other 2 campaigns that are out yet to compare, but I'm looking forward to playing those now, because I really, really enjoyed my time with this. And here is a conclusion to our story in that Black Knight is being asked to rescue Shovel Knight, while Shield Knight basically soaks up the last of the damage. And it's a little bit bittersweet, but, you know. And this game does do the story and characterization surprisingly well. Because on a surface level, you look at this and you kind of think it's a basic 2D platformer with the most bare bones story possible, and it might not seem like the kind of thing that would be sincerely touching in a way, but it kind of is. You know, you got the, I guess, love triangle going on between Shovel Knight, Black Knight and Shield Knight, and there's legitimate feelings involved that are communicated surprisingly well for, again, how basic the presentation is. And it's just honestly a really endearing setting, because it is more of a setting than like a full-on story, but you know, as far as every aspect of the narrative goes, it's pretty fucking good. And as we see the outcome for all the different bosses that we've fought. We're seeing like Treasure Knight back in the Iron Whale here, getting all his money repossessed, which kind of happens when you steal things that don't belong to you. But you know, we should probably start wrapping up my thoughts on the main game, because I've been gushing all the way through this, so I don't really need to give a final review or anything. You know that I love this game to pieces. But visually, this game is fantastic. You look at the art style, it does the whole pixel art approach perfectly. They could have just gone with, like, let's use Mega Man stuff and basically not go any further than that, but they didn't. All the characters here look great. There's some quite complex character designs that are portrayed really well in sprites, which I know is difficult to do, but they made it work. The environments look great. I love the backgrounds, I love the layers. Like, even in this area here, you see the way the trees moved in comparison to the background. It looked great. You've got the absolutely gorgeous sunset look at the flying machine here. So visually it's fantastic. The music speaks for itself, you know, the music is just fantastic. Like, Kaufman's compositions are great, and Matsume's compositions are great. It really brings the world of Shovel Knight to life, and you couldn't ask for a better soundtrack for this kind of game, honestly. Narrative, I've just been through, the story's spot on. I like Shovel Knight as a character, and I like all the designs of the Order of No Quarter. And there's really nothing I can say I dislike about this game, and that's kind of a big thing for someone as petty and nitpicky as I can be. But all we have left now for Shovel Knight, at least for Shovel of Hope, is the extras video, which will be coming probably in a couple of days or so, we'll see. Which I'll be showing off an exclusive level for the PC and Xbox One version, an extra piece of armour you get for that, and also the body swap mode. So as we see Black Knight fulfilling his promise to Shield Knight there, I think it's time for me to clear out. See you guys next time for the extras. Bye bye for now.